The knock came just after sunset, 3 sharp, heavy blows that made my stomach clench. When I opened the door, my father was standing there, rain dripping from the sleeves of his coat. "You're alone, Maya. No husband, no kids. We're taking this house." Behind him, Jason wore a smug little grin, and my mother clutched a cardboard box labeled "Master Bedroom," as if she had already moved in. The same family who once shoved me into a storm when I was unemployed now stood on my porch ready to strip away everything I had built on my own. I didn't shout. I didn't break. I simply stared back at them, quiet and controlled, and reached for my phone. What happened after that, none of them could have predicted. I grew up in a calm suburb outside Columbus, Ohio, the kind of place where neighbors trimmed hedges every Saturday and everyone waved politely while never really seeing each other. My father, Thomas, worked as a branch manager at an insurance company, a man who loved structure, rules, and the comfort of control. My mother, Linda, was an accountant obsessed with image. Fresh flowers set perfectly on the counter, matching pajamas every Christmas, a picture-perfect display of what she wanted our family to look like. And then there was Jason, 3 years older, the chosen one. He was the reason my parents bragged at picnics, the reason my mother's smiles stretched wider in photos. I was different, quieter, observant, always dreaming. I spent hours sketching designs on my old Dell laptop, building pretend websites no one would ever see. I wasn't unmotivated. I just valued things that didn't come with price tags. At 16, while Jason partied at Myrtle Beach with friends, I stocked shelves at Target and saved every dollar in a tin labeled college fund. I thought maybe they'd be proud. Every Sunday, dinner was the same: roast chicken, green beans, and my father lecturing us about success. I still remember the night I finally gathered the courage to tell them I wanted to study web design. I'd rehearsed the words for days. "Web design," my father repeated, putting down his fork. "That's not a serious profession, Maya." My mother let out a soft, amused laugh. "Sweetheart, people like you get stuck freelancing your whole life. Pick finance, something sensible." Jason snickered. "Better hope Target needs a website." Their laughter filled the room. Warm, loud, mocking. I forced myself to smile while my hands shook under the table. That night, I put away my sketchbook and stared at my laptop's dim glow, promising myself I would prove them wrong someday. When I turned 18, Jason got a brand new Ford Fusion for his birthday. My father handed me a plain envelope with $50 inside. "Get something useful," he said. I spent it on a used textbook for my design course at the community college. Those first 2 years were punishing. I worked double shifts at a diner, then stayed up all night learning code. I'd come home reeking of coffee and fryer oil, collapsed for a few minutes, then drag myself back up to study. No one checked in, no one asked if I was eating, but my grandmother, Dorothy, did. She lived in a tiny town across the state line and called every Sunday, without fail. "You've got your grandfather's patience," she'd tell me. "Don't let them shrink you, honey." During summer breaks, while Jason and my parents took vacations in Cancun, I spent days helping Grandma paint her fence, fix her computer, and water her garden. She told me stories about how she built her home brick by brick after my grandfather died. She was the first one who taught me independence wasn't loneliness. Independence was freedom. I graduated from State University at 22. No ceremony, no cheering family in the audience, just me standing outside the registrar's office, holding my diploma in a plastic sleeve. That same week, I landed a junior design job at a small digital agency. The salary was modest, but it was mine. I sent my parents a card saying I got the job and included a photo of my tiny workstation. Second-hand desk, cluttered keyboard, a cheap lamp glowing in the corner. They never wrote back. Years later, when I looked at that photo, I realized that was the moment I stopped being their child. Not the day I moved out, but the day I stopped expecting their approval. Jason remained their favorite storyline, even when reality didn't support it. My father kept a framed photo of him shaking hands with some college administrator, like it proved greatness was his birthright. Every card, every phone call from my parents highlighted Jason's accomplishments. When I got promoted at my agency, I called home to share the news. My mother answered, distracted, "That's nice, dear. Jason just got into an MBA program." Her pride stung more than her words. Jason rarely contacted me, and when he did, it was always transactional. "Need you to redo my resume. Can you make a logo for my startup?" I always helped, hoping it meant something. It didn't. The emotional distance between us grew slow and quiet, like dust settling in corners no one bothers to sweep. One Christmas, my father raised his wine glass and toasted Jason again. To the one carrying the Thompson legacy. Jason smirked proudly. My mother leaned in and murmured, "You've always been the one." They thought I didn't hear, but I told myself it didn't matter. But everything reminded me I was the extra piece. Jason's old bedroom was still preserved like a museum exhibit. Trophies, medals, pictures dusted every week. My childhood room had become a storage closet. My name barely stayed on their mailbox. I tried harder, hoping effort would buy belonging. I sent gifts on their birthdays, helped with taxes, once even drove 3 hours when their Wi-Fi went out. They didn't thank me. My mother only said Jason would have handled it faster. At 27, I'd been at the agency for 5 years. I had stability, but I still carried the weight of wanting something I'd never received from them. Then everything unraveled. The agency shut down overnight, doors locked, phone lines dead, paychecks bouncing. I convinced myself I'd bounce back quickly. I updated my portfolio, applied everywhere, counted my savings. But weeks turned into a month. Rent loomed over me. My roommate moved out, the apartment echoed with emptiness. The night before eviction, I sat on the floor surrounded by boxes, laptop open to overdue bills. My phone showed 3 missed calls from my landlord. No one else. That was when I did the thing I swore I'd never do. I called home. "Dad," I whispered, voice cracking, "I lost my job. I need help. Just a loan for rent. I'll pay it back." He sighed long and disappointed. "Actions have consequences, Maya. You chose a field with no stability. Please," I begged, "just $2,000. Just for this month." My mother's voice sharpened through the speaker. "We can't support you. We're paying for Jason's MBA. You need to learn responsibility." Then they hung up. I stared at my phone as the first drops of rain tapped against the windows, soft at first, then harder. I drove to their house anyway. The lights were glowing inside. My father opened the door just enough for the porch light to frame his face. "Dad, please, just for a few weeks." "No," he said. "You made your choices. Deal with them." My mother stepped behind him. "This really isn't a good time, Maya." The door closed. Rain soaked through my coat as I stood motionless on their porch. My breath came out in white clouds. After a long moment, I turned and walked back to my car, cold, shivering, and empty. I spent the following week living out of my car in the parking lot behind Walmart. The heater barely worked, so I wrapped myself in an old blanket, trying to sleep through the rumble of delivery trucks. I showered at a gym with a 1-day pass and charged my phone at coffee shops. I told myself it wouldn't be forever, but each rejection email made the silence feel heavier. One afternoon at Starbucks, I sat hunched over my laptop applying for jobs I didn't even want. "Maya," a voice said. I looked up. Carla, an old high school friend, stood there, her eyes softening as she took in my appearance. "Are you okay?" she asked. I tried to lie, but my throat closed. Tears came before words. Carla didn't ask again. She just said, "Come with me." Her spare bedroom felt like heaven. A real bed, warm sheets, the smell of coffee drifting in from the kitchen. The next morning, she made calls and got me an interview at her boyfriend's design studio. His name was David. He looked over my portfolio and said, "You've got an eye for detail. Start Monday." It wasn't glamorous, but it was enough. I worked late, skipped lunches, and said yes to every project. After months of humiliation, I finally felt useful again. 2 weeks in, David called me into his office. "You're good at this," he said, smiling. "Let's bump your pay." For the first time in months, I exhaled without guilt. Then the phone rang. "Is this Maya Thompson?" a woman asked. "Your grandmother's neighbor, Margaret. Dorothy's in the hospital. It's serious." The world narrowed. Grandma. Dorothy, my only real family, had pneumonia. Carla drove me the 3 hours to the hospital. When I walked into the room, Grandma looked small under white sheets, her voice thin but steady. "You came," she whispered. "I tried to call," I said, gripping her hand. "I know." She smiled weakly. "You always try." 3 days later, she handed me a thick envelope from her bedside drawer. Inside, keys, papers, the cottage. It's yours now. "Grandma, please don't talk like that. I built that home to protect what matters. Now it's your turn." That night, she passed away while I held her hand. At the reading of her will, my parents and Jason sat across from me, faces tight. The lawyer read aloud, "To my granddaughter, Maya Thompson, I leave my cottage and savings." The silence that followed was thunderous. My father stood. "Unacceptable. That house should be ours." The lawyer remained calm. "Mrs. Dorothy's wishes are legally binding." My mother snapped. She manipulated her, my own daughter. I met her eyes. "You never visited her." "I did," Jason muttered. "You don't deserve it." I rose slowly, sliding the keys into my pocket. Grandma thought I did. Then I left the room. By sunset, I stood before the cottage. Peeling paint, overgrown garden, windows clouded with dust. It wasn't much, but it was mine. I unlocked the door, stepped inside, and whispered to the empty air, "I finally have a home." The cottage needed everything: paint, plumbing, insulation, but I didn't care. For the first time in my life, I woke up surrounded by silence that was mine. The floors creaked under my feet like an old song. I painted the walls pale cream, planted flowers Grandma loved, and turned the spare bedroom into a workspace. David let me work remotely, and by night, I freelanced for small businesses that couldn't afford big agencies. I slept little, but every morning smelled like coffee and freedom. A year later, I registered my own studio, Horizon Creative. The name came from Grandma's favorite saying, "Keep your eyes on the horizon, not the storm." Clients started coming through word of mouth: a bakery, a bookstore, a small hotel by the lake. I didn't advertise. I didn't need to. Hard work spoke louder than family names ever could. Ryan Anderson walked in on a Wednesday. He owned the bookstore downtown. "I need a rebrand," he said, half smiling. His voice was calm, his handshake firm, the kind of man who looked you in the eye and meant it. I designed his logo, redid his website, and somehow we just never stopped talking. Dinner meetings became real dinners. Months turned into years. I wasn't looking for love, but it found me anyway. By 32, Horizon Creative had 3 employees and steady clients. I worked from the converted garage, Ryan helped in the garden on weekends, and every evening we ate under the old oak tree Grandma planted. My life wasn't flashy, but it was whole. Then, one Thursday, my phone buzzed. Jason. 5 years of silence, then, "Hey Maya, heard your business is doing great. Would love to reconnect." I stared at the screen until the screen dimmed. Reconnect. That word stung. I answered anyway. Jason. Hey, little sis, he said, too cheerful. We've been thinking about you. Maybe we could visit. We, Mom, Dad, and me, just for the weekend. My pulse quickened. Fine, I said. Saturday, just a visit. Saturday arrived wrapped in unease. Their car crunched down my gravel driveway. My father stepped out first, smiling too wide. My mother carried store-bought pastries. Jason wore sunglasses, even though it was cloudy. They toured the house like buyers inspecting property. You've done well, my mother said, tone sweet but sharp, for someone with no husband or children. Thank you, I replied, flat. Lunch was quiet until my father cleared his throat. This house is too big for one person. Don't you think it's wasteful? What are you suggesting? We could move in, he said, matter of fact. My mother and I would take the master bedroom. Jason could use the office for his business. I set my fork down. You can't be serious. Jason leaned back. We're family, Maya. You owe us some space. Oh, you. My voice cracked into a laugh. Like I owed you when I begged for help and you left me in the rain? My father's face tightened. That was different. No, I said, it wasn't. I stood shaking, but steady. Get out. My mother tried to soften it. You're being emotional. We just want to help. Get out. They left with stiff backs and forced smiles, but something in my father's eyes warned me it wasn't over. 3 weeks later, Ryan and I drove to Chicago for a design conference. Second morning there, a text from Margaret, Grandma's old neighbor. Maya, there are people at your house. I saw them carrying boxes inside. My chest went cold. I opened the Ring app. My father at the back door, tool in hand, prying the lock. My mother behind him, Jason hauling suitcases. They moved in like they owned the place. I called Jason. What are you doing? We're moving in, he said simply. This is a family home. You're alone. No husband, no children. You don't need it. You broke in. We have every right. Try to stop us and we'll contest Grandma's will. My hands trembled, but my voice didn't. Try me. We drove 4 hours straight home. My house, my home, looked different. Curtains drawn, lights on, their cars in the driveway. Inside, they'd replaced my photos with theirs. My clothes were shoved into boxes. My father turned from the hallway, calm as stone. You weren't supposed to be back yet, he said. It's done. I looked around slowly, feeling my pulse steady instead of rise. Is it? He folded his arms. We're taking this house. You can't stop us. I smiled just once and reached for my phone. One call, I said quietly. I dialed 911 with a calmness that scared even me. The dispatcher asked what was wrong. My family broke into my house, I said. I have video proof. Within 20 minutes, 2 police cars rolled up the driveway, lights flashing red across the wet pavement. My father stood at the door pretending to look confused. This is a misunderstanding, he told the officers. We're her family. I stepped forward, phone in hand. Family doesn't use a crowbar, I said, opening the Ring footage. The video played, my father prying the lock, Jason hauling boxes, my mother entering behind them. The sound of the latch breaking echoed through the room. The officers' faces hardened. You have 30 minutes to pack your things, one said. If you're not gone by then, you'll be arrested for breaking and entering. My mother's eyes filled with tears. We have nowhere to go. That's not my problem, I replied. My voice didn't shake this time. They scrambled, grabbing clothes, photos, shouting at each other. Jason muttered curses under his breath. My father kept insisting we built this family. I stood by the doorway, silent. Rain began again outside, tapping softly on the roof, just like the night they shut me out. When the last box hit the porch, the officer handed me a report number and nodded. You did the right thing, ma'am." The door clicked shut behind them. The house was quiet again. Mine again. I exhaled and looked around. Scuffed floors, crooked frames, rain streaks on the window. It had never felt so safe. Later, the police confirmed charges against my father and Jason. Breaking and entering, trespassing. They both pled guilty, received suspended sentences, probation. The restraining order kept them 500 feet away. Justice didn't roar, it whispered. And in that silence, I finally heard peace. Months passed. The garden bloomed again, wild and bright. I built a small swing under Grandma's oak tree, the one she planted decades ago. One evening, while Ryan cooked inside, my phone rang, an unknown number. Maya. My mother's voice trembled. "I heard you got married and that you're expecting. I just wanted to say I'm proud of you." For a long moment, I said nothing. Then softly, "Thank you." When the call ended, I looked up at the fading light. The same rain that once drowned me now watered everything I'd grown.